Hey, have you ever stopped to think about how many strange stories happen to app drivers? Like, you pass through several cities, pick up unknown passengers, go to places you've never been before, but nothing, absolutely nothing, could have prepared you for what I'm about to tell you now. This is a true story. Something that happened to a real Uber driver, and when you find out all the details, you won't be able to leave without leaving a like. Seriously, because this story is so insane, you'll want to share it with your friends. And if you're not subscribed to the channel yet, subscribe now because I'm going to bring you more crazy stories that you can't even process. Come on, let's dive into this mystery. Imagine you've been driving Uber for 5 years. You know the routine, you know how everything works, you've picked up every possible passenger. But that Thursday night, around 11 p.m., you received a request that would change everything. The pickup was in a very quiet neighborhood, on a well-lit street. Nothing unusual at first glance. You were making your last trip of the day, tired from driving all night. You know that tiredness that hits you? You just wanted to pick up this passenger and go home to rest. You arrived at the location, and when the car door opened, a woman who looked to be in her early 60s got in. She had that peculiar demeanor, completely white hair, very old-fashioned, somewhat gray clothes. Honestly, she looked like she was going to some formal event, but at the same time, there was something strange about her appearance that you couldn't quite explain. She got in the back seat and said a polite good morning, but very quietly, almost a whisper. You checked the destination on the app, and it was Lakeview Memorial Park. Okay, that's a cemetery. Well, technically it wasn't anything strange after all. People visit cemeteries all the time, but 11 p.m.? You stopped to think, this woman wants to visit a cemetery at night? You started to think it was a bit odd, but then thought, hey, the customer is always right, right? Maybe she had a good reason, maybe she was visiting someone special, paying tribute, something like that. You didn't ask any questions and just started driving toward your destination. During the drive, the woman said nothing. Absolutely nothing. She just stared out the window, silent. You tried to make small talk, like, how are things going? The weather's nice today. Nothing to break the awkward silence, and she responded with monosyllables. Yes? No, like very short answers. You started to feel a little uncomfortable, but kept driving. You turned on the radio, put on some light music, and tried to maintain a calm atmosphere. The drive was about 20 minutes long, and all you wanted was to get to your destination quickly. As you approached the cemetery, you began to notice something very strange. The app's quality dropped, your GPS started flickering, and the connection became poor. You knew this was common in some areas, especially as you were leaving the city and entering more rural areas. The road to the cemetery passed through a very quiet area, with large trees on both sides of the road and little street lighting. And the closer you got, the more the woman seemed to change. She became more tense, her movements more abrupt. You could see in the rearview mirror that she was clutching her purse, breathing more heavily. This started to make you feel strange too. You turned onto a very dark street, practically only moonlight at that moment. And that's when she asked you to stop. She said, very softly, very slowly, here, this way. We were still about 500 meters from the cemetery entrance gate. You asked if she was sure, if it wouldn't be better if you took it to the entrance. And she was very emphatic, saying, no, this way. Like, her voice changed completely, became deeper, more authoritative. It really made your hair stand on end. You braked and it stopped right there in that dark spot. And then, when it stopped, things got even stranger. She leaned over to your side, really close, and asked if you saw a light up ahead. You looked where she was pointing, and there was indeed a faint light, like a flashlight or something, flickering there in the trees. But it was so faint. It could be anything. It could be another person visiting the cemetery. It could be an animal. It could be anything. You turned to the back seat to answer, and guess what? She was gone. Like, gone. The car door was closed, you had everything locked, and she simply wasn't there anymore. Your heart raced in that instant. You turned on all the car lights, checked the mirrors, and looked back, completely frightened. Nothing. Absolutely nothing. She was nowhere to be found. You opened the car door and yelled for her, calling out several times. Nothing at all. You were literally shaking, sweating cold. Your first instinct was to try to see if she had opened the door and fallen out. But how? You had blocked everything. And besides, you had been driving on very straight roads. There was no way she could have fallen out without you noticing. You grabbed your phone to check the route on the app, and wow, when you opened it, the passenger's location had simply disappeared. The woman no longer existed in the system. Like, the app still showed you had an active ride, but there was no longer a registered passenger, no more route, nothing. That was when you truly realized something very, very wrong had happened. You decided to get out of the car and look for her. You called out several times, walked around in the darkness with your phone as a flashlight, hoping to find her lying on the ground or something. But nothing. She had simply vanished. You did something you probably shouldn't have. You drove toward that light she'd shown you. Curiosity overcame fear at that moment. As you got closer, you saw it wasn't just one light. It was more like several lights. Candlelight, flower light, cross light. You'd arrived at the old section of the cemetery from the 1800s or so, and when you scanned the area with your phone, looking for any sign of life, you saw something that completely chilled you. You saw a recent headstone, very recent, and the name on the headstone was Sarah Mitchell. And the date? This woman had died exactly 2 years ago. 2 years. On that very date. You stood there processing it. You ran out of the cemetery. You drove really fast back to town, your heart pounding. You called the police when you reached an area with better signal and reported everything. Of course, they didn't believe you. A guy who says he had a passenger who disappeared? Like, what kind of crazy story is that? But you persisted. You gave them the location of the cemetery, described the woman, everything. They went there later, checked, and actually found the headstone. Sarah Mitchell. The details matched the woman you described. You weren't crazy. It had really happened. And here's the creepiest part. The Uber app still has that trip recorded in its history, but the passenger's name appears as Sarah M., with a surname that's quite faded. And when you open that route, the route doesn't end at the cemetery. It ends right there, at the very spot where she disappeared, 500 meters away. As if Uber had recorded that the trip ended there. But she never completed the trip. She never paid. And when you check your payment app, there's a transaction for $42 that says Sarah M. date unknown. Like, the system can't even record when that trip took place. This doesn't make sense under the laws of technology. It's been months since that happened, and you still drive for Uber, still pick up passengers. But ever since that night, whenever someone asks to go to a cemetery, you get scared. Your heart beats faster, your skin crawls. And the weirdest thing, you've received Uber requests from people with that same app pattern, like active location, but no photo, no full name, no reviews. And when you see them getting in the car, they always have that look, that age, that kind of gray clothing. You always decline these rides now. Your instinct tells you something very strange is happening, something you can't explain with common logic. So that's it, man. This is the story that still haunts you. I mean, that still haunts this driver. If you have any similar stories, strange experiences, something Twilight Zone-like you've experienced, leave them in the comments. I love reading these stories, and it's great to know you're not the only one going through these crazy things. Leave a comment, share with your friends, subscribe to the channel, because I'll bring you more stories like this that you literally can't even process as true. If you've made it this far, give me that like you promised. Thanks for watching, and believe me, there are many more strange stories happening in the middle of the night that you can't even process as possible. Thanks, guys.